Welcome to the Faith That Moves Mountains sub-series podcast of the Fashioning My Faith podcast for women by women. I'm Erica Cantrell, and you can tell today I'm not alone. This is my mom, Peggye Cantrell. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm originally from Baxter, Tennessee, and moved to Warren County after I was married. And I have been married to my husband, who is a faithful gospel preacher for 28 years now. And I teach third grade in Warren County.
Well, and you may be asking yourself, great, we get to meet your mom. Great, good, and well, but what are we doing here? And why are we doing a sub-series after a first season of a new podcast? Well, I'm going to tell you why. So we go on a annual family vacation up here to Pigeon Forge, and we always enjoy our time. It's right around Christmas time. The lights, everything's really beautiful. And I just got to thinking, I was like, Mom, we should do a little mini series while we're up there. Do a little podcasting,
Yes.
have a little fun. So what better to talk about while you're in the mountains, the Great Smoky Mountains, than faith
That
that
moves
moves mountains?
mountains.
And so, Mom, if you'll read our key verse, we have a key verse for this series that we're going to kind of focus on this episode and then dive really deep into in our fourth episode. There's going to be 4 episodes in this mini series. So, Mom, if you'll read that for us.
Our key verse is Matthew 17:20. He said to them, "Because of your little faith, for truly I say to you, if you have faith like a grain of mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you."
And so we want to read that to go ahead and give you this key verse of the series. But like I said, we're going to really dive deep into it in our 4th episode, so don't get too anxious if we don't deep study it today. But let's get to going. So we're going to talk about faith. We're going to study about faith. What is faith? And so, Mom, what does faith mean to you?
When I think about faith, obviously I think of that strong belief in God. But with that, I also think about complete and total trust. It can be complete and total trust in someone or something, but especially when dealing with our relationship with God. And what do you think, Erica?
For me, faith really shifts from anything else based on the separation of emotion and God. Like, we have emotion for God, we have love for God, but when it comes to faith in God, we have to remove our human emotion, the emotions that tell us that we decide what God is, and put those aside and go to the logical emotions that trust the Bible
Yes.
of what God is, and taking away our emotion to put forward and really dive into who God is. Because ultimately, when it comes to faith, we can't just make something up. We have to have faith in something that's the right thing, not what we make it. And so, where would you go to get like the perfect definition though? Because we can talk about faith, what we view faith as, what I view faith as, but where would you go to see the perfect, definitively definite definition of faith?
I think we go to the perfect authority on the subject, the Bible.
So, Mom, if you'll read for us the King James Version, we're going to go to the verse in the Bible. You may have heard this as the faith verse if you've grown up in the church, but it's Hebrews 11:1. I'm going to have Mom read the King James Version, and I'm going to read the ESV because you'll notice there's 2 words, 2 key words in the definition of faith that are a little shifted, not to change the definition, but just to give you a little better clarity.
All right, the King James Version says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen."
And the ESV says, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen." And so you'll see with the first word that changes in those versions is substance versus assurance. And so, Mom, what does that tell you in those 2 words?
Well, when I think about substance, I think about that core matter, that very basic makeup of something. But with assurance, it gives a little different meaning to me. It's more of a comforting feeling. What do you think?
I really feel like if you're the type of person, and these versions are given to us to kind of help us get better clarity. None of this is changing the Bible, but these are both very trusted translations. But to me, it helps with the type of person you are. If you're someone who needs something to grasp onto, something tangible that you can touch, then maybe that word substance really resonates with you better. But if you're someone who, I know a lot of times growing up, I would come up to mom and I'd be like, so this is what I'm thinking. This is what I think the answer is. What do you think? Because I just needed someone to reassure me. And so for me, that word assurance is like, let's shut down the second guessing and let's trust. So that's where a little bit of trust comes in with me. But you'll notice on down further, the second set of words that's clarification is evidence in the King James Version, evidence of things not seen, versus in the ESV, you have the conviction of things not seen. And so, Mom, tell me a little bit about that one.
So when I think of evidence, I instantly go to like that scientific mode for a teacher. Evidence is that proof, that hard proof you need. And a lot of people today really struggle because they feel like they have to have that tangible proof, and we don't have to have the tangible evidence with faith. And on the other side of that, conviction is more of a firm belief to me. I'm totally convicted in what I'm saying. So how do you think about that, Erica?
Well, I agree with you a lot on the evidence part, which, little Miss Science teacher over here, she taught science and math for quite a few years. She's very good at the evidence. Was it scientific method that you have to use? You have to have evidence. So
that's exactly what I was thinking about.
I definitely agree. The evidence is a little more, again, in my mind, which in the King James Version, that's where we got substance being a little more tangible. Evidence to me feels a little more tangible if you're someone that just has to have that kind of proof. Whereas on another clarification of the Greek wording being in the ESV translation, conviction. And again, just like assurance resonated with me, conviction really resonates with me, because when it comes to your actions, they say it's not just about what you do, but like your intention behind it. So intention and conviction really go hand in hand for me. So when you think about the conviction of things not seen, it's kind of that, it's almost like assurance again, but it's more just like you're convinced.
And see, for me, it's kind of a split. I like the feeling, the comfort of assurance, just that feeling it gives you. But then turn the coin. The second one, I like the evidence. Mm-hmm. So it's just the two sides of the brain thinking, I believe.
Yes, and that's why, again, I mean, I've probably said it like 5 times at this point, but it's not changing the translation. It's just a clarification that kind of helps you as a learner, as a student of the Bible, get that better understanding of what the verse is telling us. So how do you define faith? It's this thing that gives you an assurance or a substance of the things you hope for. And what do we hope for as Christians?
A home in heaven with God.
Absolutely. And so faith is going to give us that reassurance, that substance of heaven, but also the evidence, the conviction of the things that we can't see on this side of eternity. And what's like the biggest thing we can't see on this side of eternity?
God in heaven.
Exactly. So our faith is definitive of what gives us kind of that whole feeling that we don't need anymore. Our faith fulfills our desire, our hope, our trust. Everything we need to get to heaven and to get to God, we get there with faith. So, and the things that go along with faith, which we're going to get to later. So, it's going to be really short and simple for this first episode because we're just defining faith, but we're already at the conclusion. So, we really appreciate you being here with us today and exploring the idea of faith, the idea of the sub-series, for meeting my mom.
And thanks for having me on the podcast, Erica.
Well, anytime, Mom. And so we just hope that you join us with our next episode. We're going to be talking about faith in the valleys and what that looks like. We've all
been there in the valley, whether we either feel like we're stuck in a rut or just a spiritual struggle that we're having to fight through.
Mm-hmm. And life always has these natural mountains and valleys, especially in our faith. We have times where we're just on fire for God and we're on cloud nine and everything's great and good. And we're going to talk about that in episode 3 about what faith looks like in that time of our life. But this next one's about those times when we're just down and we might be unmotivated. We might just be struggling.
And you
And
know, Erica, sometimes it's a gentle slope down that we don't even realize until we hit it.
Mhm.
And then we've got to figure out, I need the strength to get out of this.
Absolutely. And so we're going to dive into that next episode. We're going to talk about some biblical characters who were in a valley and maybe a little hope at the end of the lesson to kind of give you a
Yes.
positive spin. So I guess you'll just have to tune in next time to find out.
See you next episode.
See ya.